Tene tatari Tangbushya la Tajerdo Khenpo Ganshar Semti te Tesi Randu te Chögyam la Tene te Chögyam Kapso Tangbo Tangaranso Tambichu la Ichi Tang Tepa Chua Chimbo Chögyam la Tene Chua Yona Tene tela tene zendu tang tepa mugu kompel don roa yinpe chena roa jipe ke chetula jitang ta lo jun rabo tang chilab ke jiban rabo kor te hyona tene tawla roa rabo yungre samba tende sene tangbo ta lo ju ke kor la jerdo tang Khenpo Ganshar te tene nguma tanda turap mambu kongla champion camp lama tinde mare tini nyechar tini lorap khahe ge ngaila champion ge tini lama cheparjin kepa chimbo imba zonda yo mazi tini ke nyom topa cheparjin tini tuba top ne konga kachu samuna ne tini jitang yenda mandawa ge ta tangbi chu de la chilap cheparjin do se jay kanga ge tepa ta ichi tuba ta tinde chungwa re la tini tikor de jitang te zi hyona te chenamba tu la tuwanda bu je ge re somba tende chongsong la ten jasi hiwa la ge song na ya tene njuk chung jepar cha wichir sen nandatar zain te to se ta jay leka yabu jay se du te la tene te kongni kongdam pel gu ge yuwa re la kongni kongdam pel war se pa la tene sen la de se jepan rabo yuwa na tene te kongpel tun rogu ma re te yena yang sen la chua rabo je yuwa na tene te la tene kongpel tun rogu yin bichir na to la chua jepa te kal che wa re nda tene som som
저인데 가서 최세랑도 리베야 두타 리베
Tesirandu.
리베 데 두타 두타 말베
Tundarebe.
다 데라오나 가서 다 두타게 다리 죄송
Ya. Oh ya. Narang tesirandu.
근데 이제 신다 됐어
Ya. Tene tuntati hyonan de gitwa.
나서 So, first of all, these instructions, these things taught by Khenpo Gangshar, these instructions on the ways to practice or the philosophical schools, are wonderful instructions. And so I think that in order to teach them, it really helps if you have some belief in them, if you have some real faith and excitement about doing them. Because if you have excitement, then you'll be able to be diligent about them. You'll be able to have faith and instruction, and you'll be able to have faith and interest in them, and this will just keep developing. And so, in order to help you develop the faith and develop this, in order to develop, if you understand the history and sort of the lineage of the power and the blessings of these instructions, then this will be very helpful for you. So first I thought I'd like to talk about the history. So Khenpo Gangshar is not one of these masters who lived many centuries ago in some remote time. He's actually someone from recent times, from just a few decades ago, someone who developed real realization and experience, who developed real accomplishment, and then gave many teachings. And these were very helpful and powerful teachings that were unlike any other teachings, that and there were also teachings that had exceptional power and exceptional exceptional blessings to them. And so if you have faith and you have belief in them, then I think it will help you to understand. And so for that reason, I'd like to talk about why you should be excited about receiving these teachings. As it is said in Shantideva's The Way of the Bodhisattva, in order to embrace and increase these, then we should really develop excitement in our minds. And so if you're excited about something, you need to do something. If you need to do something and you are somewhat regretful about it, you aren't certain about it, then you aren't going to be able to do well with it. But if, on the other hand, you have real excitement about what you're going to do, you're going to be able to develop, you're going to be able to increase what you're doing. And so for that reason, I would like to talk about the development of excitement about this.
Tene tateya chitanga ta ngarang la ndirba chungtong ke korne hyona tene chirdo chumta te tanda zo tene tanda nju Mipham Rinpoche le chungwa rela Mipham Rinpoche te tanda ta chitanga yonsu chakpa tardu se na jamgan namba som se jamgan namba som te tanda jamgan tene kongru yen ten janso te che tene nipa te jamyon chinsi yongbo te che tene sumba te tanda jamgan Mipham Rinpoche che ta kong namba som jamgan namba som se yonsu chakpa re la tene kong ke tanda ta chitang jamgan kongru yen ten janso tan chinsi yongbo ni te tsawe lama zo tene tene kong ke ta tene nang kapsa la tene jay lo mombo la tene ngoma Thrangu Gamba la pe ne tene ya la ritri che yo are la tena lo nga zong yo tene te yuba zong da yo ma zi tene ti la tanda Mipham Khenju si yo are la Khenju te la desin namba som yo are desin namba som ka no ne tongbo ten kyo nipa te tene chu chi dam ye tene sumba te susu yung tabar riba ye te desin rabo namba som yo are la namba som ka na ne tene ta zo rabo te tene ten kyo te tanda Thrangu Gamba la zom nang ne tene kong tuji dong menlam ja chenpo nang re la tene tuji dong menlam ja chenpo nang ne ta che mrab ji me kap la tene tena la Mipham Rinpoche ke sunjing ke hyedatsu tene kong re tuji dong menlam nang tab ji sinlap te sinlap jupan Rinpoche ke go ne tuji dong menlam nang tene ti kapsula hyehin control pe tene nawa re la hyehin control pe kapso tene che kong la tono ya mandawa tene jong ne ta te tene sine kong la Mipham ke sinlap dabo pe masiba kal chenpon da usong ta tene ka ser nang yo re la te nawa tardo tene tanda ta ngaran so la pe misal ke tene Mipham Rinpoche ke tuji dong menlam ke jesu zong atang tuji ke Vajra popa tene te yento tuji ke sinla jupan rabo yojire sombe ke ta ngarang so ichi chi tuba tende yo are la tene ngarang la te tabu ke sinla jupu ke nupan rabo sinla top ke kalwa zangbon rabo chungwa yinbi chirna che namba la yung ta di kor di hyo na pe pen tog re sombe ke tene ichi rabo ta tende yo are.
And so, in order to help you develop this excitement, I want to tell you about the connection, the lineage that this teaching comes from. And so this teaching on the philosophical schools or the ways to practice primarily comes from the tradition of Mipham Rinpoche, Ju Mipham Rinpoche. And Ju Mipham Rinpoche is one of the three lamas who was known in the 19th and early 20th century as the three Jamguns. These three Jamguns were first Jamgun Kontrol Yönten Gyatso, or also known as Jamgun Kontrol Lodar Tai, Jamyang Khense Wangpo, and also the third was Jamgun Mipham Rinpoche. And so these are the three Jamguns who were well-known, great, well-known Tibetan masters. And Jamgun Mipham Rinpoche followed Jamgun Kontrol Lodar Tai and Jamyang Khense Wangpo as his root lamas. And then he continued his activity and taught the Dharma, spread the Dharma. And one of the things that he did was to go to Thrangu Monastery in eastern Tibet. And when he was in Thrangu Monastery, there is a retreat center on the hill behind Thrangu Monastery. And he spent 5 years in that retreat center. And it was there that he composed a portion of his Gateway to Knowledge. So there's the famous text called A Gateway to Knowledge by Mipham Rinpoche. And this Gateway to Knowledge has 3 main sections. The first of these sections is made up of 10 points. The second of these is 4 summaries of the Dharma, and the third is of the 4 proper awarenesses, or correctly distinguishing awarenesses. And so of these 3 different sections, the main section of the work is the 10 points. And these 10 points were composed while Mipham Rinpoche was staying in the retreat center at Thrangu Monastery. And as he composed them, he had great compassion, he had great aspirations for these. And so later, there was a monastic college, a shutter, that was founded at Thrangu Monastery in the tradition of Mipham Rinpoche's. So because of this, it had great blessings. The Shechen Khenpo Rinpoche came to Thrangu Monastery, and when he came there, he had various pure appearances. And he said at the time, this is really a place where the blessings of Mipham Rinpoche are really strong. And so this is a wonderful place. It's the particular blessings of Mipham Rinpoche. It's a place where, because of his compassion, because of his intentions and his aspirations, he's able to take care of the shutter and to take care of us. And so it's like we are now, all of us who can read this text, we are able to be taken care of by his compassion and aspirations. It's like the light of his compassion has struck us as well. We're able to receive the blessings of them. So we can have real faith. We can have real confidence in this. And so for myself, I had the opportunity to study these teachings at the time, and because I received them at the time, I have the real confidence that if I tell them to you, then these will be something that will be very beneficial and very helpful for all of you.
Tene ta tejendo tanda chitang ta tanda pyedo tarwe chulu chimbu kanga tene songji jamden de sumbe chure tene tela tawa tong tuntale kido ke chepra yo mare te yinaya susu ge nyomli 다 산지 좀 된데게 테네 단다 동화 체퍼지 망부 나요아래라 동화 만다와 나와데 테네 동화 만다와 된주게 제메시바 소수게 강다보다 데 즘베게 쳬도 테네 둔타게 지바 만다와 된데 중화래라 tene teacher na ta tanda ngaranso kajibada nimawa tenjuge tene shaje chimbo to zopa chimbo gangge yorela shaje chimbo to zopa chimbo gamba imbe cherna tene chitang tunta ta tawa tenla pap kapso laya tene tige nyomnyong te ta tumbaje ga tawa te tenla pap na tene tige chitang pesi koare jiba ga taware te jiba ga tawate tene shozu ni bodan tumbaje tenla papna tene nyamling ga kapsula tabdewa nyamling tan tumba tene nyamling te dan tumba zomda yomasi nyamling te compare tumbo kapsula tene nyamling la ji tamba tene be yapo yungi yore la tene tetab maina ta tanda tene perna pesa sipe kapsula tene koate kakache tene nyamlin sipe kapsula nyamlin te kakache na tene teni tesi mantin bandago yorela tene teacher na Mipham Rinpoche ke tawate tene chozu ke tawatan tunba be yapo yebicherna tene tuntata tawaten zoya tene tumo maimbe chechu hiro yore.
Now, generally in Tibet, there are many different Dharma traditions that spread there. And all of these are the same in that they're the Dharma of the Buddha. In terms of the actual view, in terms of the philosophical schools, the ways of practice, there are really not that great differences between them. But in terms of our own individual practices, there are many different instructions, many various instructions that the Buddha gave, and they're all different in many ways. And so they're all different in many ways, and there are traditions of each of these. There are streams of each of these, and so each has their own source. And when we want to uphold and maintain that source of each of these, that is why there are the traditions of the different schools that developed. Now, in the Kagyu and the Nyingma traditions, we do the meditations of Mahamudra and Dzogchen. And when we do the meditation of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, if we have a philosophical school, if we have a view that really accords with the experience of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, then this is something that is really helpful. It'll help. This view is helpful for our practice. If our experience and if our view and if our understanding and our experience are something that are in accord and that get along with our practice of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, then our practice will be easy. It will fit with our views. Not only that, it will really help our develop practice. It'll really help us develop real experience. If, on the other hand, we have a view that when we study the texts, we have one particular view, and when we do practice, we have another view, and these two don't fit with each other, then it doesn't work so easily at all. And so here, when we're studying the view of Mipham Rinpoche, this is something that really fits very well with the view of Mahamudra and of Dzogchen. And so it really fits with the particular features of the view and of the philosophical schools.
Tene ta tela tanda tenchun zepapo tene ta tanda kon Khenpo Ganshar kon tanda Mipham Chögyam zimbapo ta zo yere la tene kon ge tawa tang Trungpa sumba te ya Mipham gomba tang tamba tena papa yimbe cherna tene te ge ngaranso je chaja chimbo nyamni nongkin to zoba chimbo nyamni nongkin so la be mesibe tene pento chimbo tene hira yapo suwan ze pare la tene te kong tomo mayimba de suwata tene kona ya tanda jitang tang nguma jagaratu chembe kepa tene tegendo pedo semba ina yon turap komala pepe gen kepa nam chi song ina tesi kokawa ta tene yore de ina ya turap jima ta ngaran su turap tena pepa yin bechena ko lawa tab dewa pento chewa ta tene yore.
So the author of this text that we are looking at is Khenpo Gangshar. And Khenpo Gangshar is one of the main people to really hold the lineage of Mipham Rinpoche. And so when he came to understand the view and the philosophical schools, he really did this in a way that followed Mipham Rinpoche. And so for those of us who are practicing Mahamudra and who are practicing Dzogchen, understanding this is really helpful and really beneficial. And so he is someone who had a really particular, special way of expressing it. Sometimes when we look at the texts written by the ancient masters from India or by the masters from the old centuries in Tibet, sometimes we look at these texts and they're really difficult to understand. But when we look at a text by a modern master, someone from our own time, it's really easy to understand, really simple and really beneficial.
Tene ta tejendo tanda lama konge suante kalchewa imbe masiba ge ta tinsang ka kapsula tanda loma namba ina ya pe kalwatan demba rela tene kalwatan demba imbe junsen te pernang huma pela pe yo lama tong lomen derba se du tela tene pe de kandere se na tuji jakju se na jakju je da 대pe along sena along je Tene tege tombo tuji jakju de yona, debe along de mena, tene ko riri ndabo tan gong ndabo tene jakju de kasi tabna yo to yang tenya ndabo yo mare de yina ya debe along ya pa jeda. Debe along yo na yo tuji jakju de mena, tene zinki mena along de la tene kaya zinki ndabo me pa joge yo re la. Tene tetabu mayimpa, ta tinsanga kapsul chen nomba tombe chue la deba to mugu zinki kanga tuji jakju to debe along zamne. Ta jerdo kali songwa tangna pe nangpa sanji pe chue de ta chitanga jagar ke yordo tarwa re la. Jagar tang Amerika sena pe Sauta Rinpo pe mesi pa janso chimbu ka pardu che deba. Tene ta tinde ke Sauta Rinpo. Ta tingsang nomru ke pe te si nyoponda bu kuki yore de yina ya ta ti continental la pa ndo kapsala pe na ngaranda bu ji na kalika tangche ta tinde yungdu del pe sara njangbo hido yore de yina yang sanji ki tuji ki tambe chue de bujo ji down de tene America la bujo down la sonji tuji jagarni yal bejaja yo man ngi bejaja ni sa America padal bejaja yo be ti on rela teni lomatsu ge tepati ge teni sa jagarni surte ten yo teni tanda America ten to pata teni chungare teni tuji jakju to tepa anu nin zamne teni tsun ten ne te ge be ni tuji ge ya be ni tini tanda tepa ka tsun teni tini ta Sauta Rinpo jansu chimpo gal ne tini ana letwa alan let ne tini loma nana tuju yapa ta tini chunga rewa.
So these words spoken by the Lama are really important words, but they're also really important because now for you students, for all of us students, we're really fortunate. And why is it that we are so fortunate? Well, there's an example that we give about this in Tibetan. It's said that when you have the connection between a student and the teacher, there is the hook of compassion, and then there is the eye of faith. And you have to have both of these. You have to have both the hook of compassion and the eyelet of faith. Because if there is just the Lama's hook of compassion, then that hook of compassion goes and it tries to catch on to something. But if there's no eyelet of faith, there's nothing for it to hook onto. It's just like some round spherical thing. There's nothing that it can grab onto, and it doesn't do any good. On the other hand, if you have the hook of compassion, if you have the eyelet of faith, but you don't have the hooklet of compassion, then the eyelet of faith, there's nothing to catch onto that either, and so it doesn't do any good. So you have to have both the hook of compassion and the eyelet of faith. So for you all have faith in the Dharma. And so because of that, there is this hook of compassion and the eyelet of faith. These two have come together. And for that reason, the teachings of the Buddha have been able to come here. So actually, when we think about it, the Buddhist teachings they spread first in India, and India is a place that is really far away. It's a long way away from here. There is a huge ocean in between the two places. And so in old days, there was no way that there could be much contact between the two. Nowadays, yes, we do have intercontinental flights, and we can fly from one to the other. But, and we can go there rather quickly, but still, especially if you're like me, it's kind of difficult. You fly there, you get really tired, you're just exhausted for a few days after you get there. It's a really long way to go, and it seems really hard that for the teachings of the Buddha to come over here. But it's like the compassion of the Buddha has really pushed it all together. It's really been pushed together quite a bit. And so now it's like, from one side, the Indians are being pushed over here by the compassion. Then your faith is strong. And we've got this faith and this compassion come together. We're being smushed together in this way. And so I'm able to come here, and I'm able to teach you. I'm able to meet you. And this is really wonderful.
Tene ta tetabu kokab sambu chungare la. Tene ta yinaya tanda lo kyo nyeshu gong la tene ta tombe chu de je lama je ge xal ne song loma de ga anchu la ni ne de pa ma to tene deb nda bo ta pe shan da bo chi da yo ma re la tene de gen do pe ka le kha bu yo re de yin ya ting sang ka ka so la tene pe na lo za wa ma bo chong lo za wa ma bo chong ne tene chope ten zo yo inji ke la jor tene kanga ga ta to pa ta kanga ga long che to pa kanga ga njal to pa tende ge pe ko kap sang bo chungwa te ya pe mesib tene ta tangbo america la chu tar tene tangbe chu da lo ma zo tangbe chu da tre tangbe chu da tre ne chu te ya nyen som ma yin ba nyen som chung na ya pe kalwa sang bo re si na kalwa sang bo re te yin na ya nyen som ma yin ba tene tangbe chu la hipar long je pe ga ko kap sang bo to pe ga kalwa sang bo chung re.
So this is a really wonderful opportunity. But even if we think about it, if we compare to how it was a couple of decades ago, 10 or 20 years ago, then at that time, when you'd come to teachings, you could hear the teachings and listen to the teachings, and that was about all you could do. There just weren't that many books back then. It was really difficult to study Dharma at that time. But now there are many translators who have translated a lot of works into English, and so you can all look at them, you can enjoy them, you can read and study them all. This is a really wonderful opportunity for this. So the Dharma has spread here in America. Not only has this Dharma spread here, you've also had the chance to encounter it. And when you encounter it, you can listen to it from the Dharma. But it's not that you just have to listen to it from the Lama. Of course, listening to the Dharma from the mouth of the Lama is a wonderful opportunity, but it's sometimes hard if you want to study it in detail. So now you can actually read the works, you can study them, and you can really get into them in detail.
Tape kongjingi jongla chue taru kapsula ya tene tanda tombo jagar ki to se ten jari yorela sanskrit ki de yogu pe junsen de kandide se na loza garden te go pasi loza wa tenzo pe garden chembore te mato loza wa tenzo me na tene huma pe sanskrit ki la tene pepa tenzo ndan ma to pa ndan to na yo tanda mowa ta tende yore de yin na yo pe ki to jor loza wa tenzo kawa ma bo che ta tende na ne jor yo yin de la pe me se pe tene garden chembo yin ba la garden chembo yin ba hi pe ki che la tene jagar ki to mo pe ki go ba ta tende yo so wa re la tene te tar do tanda loza wa ma bu ge chope ma bo jor tene ma on ba la ju ju kin chari ki yo ta tende na wa tenzo pe kokap zangpo dan chue la longje pe kokap pusong choba tene te zamde yo ma zi loma cho ta kalwa zangpo tene chungare.
Now, when the teachings of the Buddha spread to the snowland of Tibet, when they translated something, the first word they put is in the Indian language, so in Sanskrit, giving the title in Sanskrit. And the reason that they put this is to remind us of the kindness of translators. You better remember this one. Remind us of the kindness of translators, because at first the Tibetans didn't speak Sanskrit, and so when the Dharma was brought into Tibet, they wouldn't be able to read the texts, and even if they could sound them out, they wouldn't be able to understand what the texts were saying. And so then when the translators actually translated these texts and spread them in Tibet, it's to help us remember how kind they actually were in order to translate these texts. And so in order for us to remember that kindness as being the kindness as it is, in the Tibetan texts, they always begin by saying in the Sanskrit. Oh, I'm seeing here that there's something left off here. It should say in Tibetan. In the Sanskrit, it says in the Sanskrit. This is the title. And so now we have, in English, we have a lot of translators who are translating a lot of things, and they're making plans to translate more into English. And so this is really wonderful opportunity, and it's a great way to help spread the Dharma. And it is also an extremely great fortune for all of you.
Tene tetabu main nang humaga loju yorella. Humaga loju la tene tanda mertinjana, pendeta mertinjana. Trembaiki. Pekil Trembaiki segre. Sanskrit kela mertinjana sungurella. Tene tepe mesipe jagarne kepa chembore. Tene kepa chembo indu tela kon pela pe. Tene pela pe du tela konga lozawa te. Tene langwa ne tronhyor. Langdo yapo majune langwa ne tron. Tene kon pe kule kabo chawne. Tene te la tene metsuge sena jagarga achara re se. Tene jagarga achara re se ne tene kon leka mato ne ranso tene chegu chongare la. Raj na wata tende chongare la. Tongsep raj na tende pegu chongare la. Tene te chiso choje pa den atikya sendu o te jagar hyanu la tende kepa chembo mepa te tene pel tende ge pe tola chembo tomo chongare zone tu pamba na tende chung loju yore la tene teacher na tene lozawa yena pe pento chembo to lozawa me na pe kapa ngemba to te yungu.
There's actually a story about this from the history. There was a great Indian scholar named Nritijana, which means the wisdom of, or the gnosis or wisdom of mindfulness. And he was a great scholar, a really amazing scholar. And he went to Tibet. But as he was on the way to Tibet with his translator, the translator passed away on the road. He died on the way. The life on the road didn't agree with him. He passed away, and then it became very difficult for him. He went places. This great scholar Nritijana was unable to actually teach the Dharma. He'd go everywhere, and people would say, "Oh, he's just this sort of Indian devil or something." You know, this he can't do anything. He got so frustrated, he got drunk all the time, and he got drunk and would go places and not be able to communicate with anything. It was a really difficult thing. And so later, when Atisha went to Tibet, he said, there was this great scholar. He was one of the best. There was no one in the west or the east of India who could compare to them. And he went to Tibet, and he just got completely wasted. So, I'm sorry, the words for getting drunk and for being a shepherd sound almost exactly the same. This is not an instance of the kindness of translators.
Tene ta te tabu pe yabu chongare pe na kasing ngara elseword la chu hi gu chongare. Tene translator lozawa me ne pe go da hi gu chosura. Tidi kalle ka yore la. Teacher na tanda lozawa tenzu ge juri yapa tenzu pe kalchuma mainpa pe tenzu la todami yapo na Deb tenzo zai, deb tenzo nyamli na, deb tenzo dang, tende na pe pento chebo yungo.
And so he didn't get drunk. He became a shepherd, and he had to go from village to village as a shepherd. And then Atisha said to him, "This is such a terrible waste that someone who is one of the greatest scholars in the east and the west of Tibet, of India, had to become a shepherd in Tibet." And so there is this history, and so this shows us how important it is to have translators, and how fortunate we are to have translators. Such as the other day, I was up in Ellsworth, and when I was in Ellsworth, I had to give a little talk, but my translator was on vacation, and it was really difficult. I couldn't say much more than just "Hello, how are you?" And so I'm sorry. And so And so it's important. It's really important to have translators. You should remember how important it is, and not think of translators as being something unimportant, but support them. And also, when they translate something, it's important to study it and to actually practice it. And if you do study and practice these, it is really helpful.
Tene tate la tetabuge tene tep tenzoya ta chitang ngaranso nushu la tang humanda jina je tambe chuge tepi hira tenyo marila tene jitinge loju ndabota dong ndabota tene tendalige je sanjur ndabota tende chata imbe chebna je tela tep tela nyelen dabo tatra si chala nyimban dabo temi dabo re somne o la tain tinde chegi yore la tini tanda nangba sanjibe tambe chue tenzo tinde mayimba te si tenzo la kuba ya poje o la tingwan dabo ta kombe zan dabo tinde mayimba pe ya sa tsang sa la ya tela tepa che tene che du tela songno tang du tela kupare te chitang shogre naksare ta tela tepa to kupaji na chokha yore sambandabo kahi ngala la nyonga tene te tinde rete yinaya te trasi mare tene ti tep tenzo la tene ngune tenda la tene che jamba nije chongju gesem herab yehi nyam topa jilla jewarsi be pento chimbu nuba yorala nuba tedang demba tepe trasi hog changbanda bota naksa changbanda bobre samba main patni tel tela tepa to kupasiana ti nuba nda bote rang senji tento yungi yorala tini junsin teacher na teptenzola nyelenda bota habla tenganda bota kombe zanda bo tende main pa ta ti jakaza chimboji sambandabo tene ta tanda tende se ta perna ngaransola sergi jenchaji yona sergi jenchate ta chitang jakatra jaka yenda ndabo main pa tene gongno jo te yapo tom te yapo nyar tende chegi yorela te rentang jenchire te pento jenchire son yapo nyar yor pe te yenda ngaranso te tenzo ya ta ko pento me pa tra yo yo chocho ri chocho ze chocho ndabo je re samba main pa tande uni jewa ndada jewa chima kangala pento chembo ye pichala je re nda peche yaboji sena ngarang korwa dungal je jansole dol tupu nuba yore sombe tepata ichichi ne tini tenzola rentangji ngu ponda bo tsana pe tini rang tepata mugu yang pel tela tini tep nuba yon ten tini rang senla pento chembo jungre.
And so when we have Dharma books, in the old days in the West, there just weren't many Dharma books. We had the Western books, we had histories, we had stories, we had various magazines and newspapers and so forth. And so with these books, we'd do anything. We'll throw them on the floor, bring them in the bathroom, do whatever. Didn't worry about paying any respect to them. But with Buddhist books, we shouldn't do that. It's important for us to be really respectful of them. So we should make sure not to put them on the floor, not to put them underneath other things, not to put things on top of them, not to be disrespectful of them, not to step upon them. But we should always put them in good places, in clean places, and have faith and devotion in them. And so when we think about this, sometimes people look at this and they think about it and they say, that's really stupid. Actually, a book, it's just paper and it's ink. There's really nothing valuable about it. It's just a book. It's just paper and ink. So it's kind of stupid to feel like you have to always take good care of it in this way. So many people have said this to me, but actually that's not how it is. Although the book may be made out of paper and ink, it actually is something that has the power to help us develop loving kindness, to develop compassion. It has the power to help us develop bodhicitta, to develop our full knowing, develop our wisdom, to develop experience and realization. And so it has that power to create all these qualities in us. It's not just some thing that we should just throw on the ground and disrespect. If we we have real faith and real interest in this book, then we will be able to really develop the power of it. It's something we'll be able to develop, experience the power of it within our own mind streams. And so we shouldn't treat it as if it's something disposable, as if it's something that we can just lie down and rip and not do anything but do whatever we want to. But we should take good care of them. It's like if you have a gold ornament, a piece of gold jewelry. If you have gold jewelry, you think this is something really valuable, you take good care of it, you polish it, you put it in nice places, you take good care of it, you have a jewelry box for it, you take good care of it. And so you see the value in it. Because you see the value, you take good care of it. And it's the same with Dharma books. When you see the value of the Dharma books, then you can really, then you can think to yourself, this is something that's really valuable. And if you do this, then it's something that'll be helpful for you. You appreciate the value of the book, and because, and you see that it is something that has the power to extract you from the suffering of samsara. And so because you have that faith, then you'll be able to really experience the power that is inherent within that book. And this is something that will be very helpful for you.
Tene ta tela ta chirtanga tanda Trungpa nani sundu tela zo tela tene namba sanje pa maimbe Trungpa jaidan tene te nani tene namba sanje be Trungpa tezi mandawa ta tiki Trungpa de susu la tsedu tela Trungpa sedu tela ta chitanga ripi drup ni tene nyedanche ni ta tela zo kandiri se na ngaranzo chaja chimbo to zopa chimbo gamba kapsala kariri se na ngansum to tawarila ngansum to tawa tela tene ngansum ji tawa to jibo ga tawa ni warela ngansum ji tawa teya tene jibo ga tawi ga tru se ni tene jima kali ngansum to tonga te yungi warela teacher na jibo ga tawa te kalchi war jibo ga tawa se tu repeat drup ni tene repeat ga drup tene chai Trungpa ti ndri ji nduk sambate tawa te kandi nyegi yopate la tene cheparte salbu che che na ndri mandu samba ngehi ndabo che chewa yimbe na Trungpa te sambate la kal chewa re la tene Trungpa te la yang jitang tangaran so pe de tarwe Trungpa ga on se na ta jagar la ma muti takar de ngase takndana la jitang tawa mambo chungwa re de yina ya ti nang ne takar de ngase chungwa re se ta ti desin do na tene chepar tawa ta takpar tawa ni yo re song yo re la ti nang ne takpar tawa te tangbo song chepar tawa te jima song na yina yo re kasin ngarang tene ta talila minse ka Trungpa ge loju che jarju chongsona kong ge sung kapsula tene Trungpa ge shopi na la takpar tawa te tangbo hi chepar tawa te jima hi yo rete yina yang ngarang su ko dewi ga on de se na chepar tawa te tangbo hi takpar tawa te jima hi na pe tab devo re ta tene song yo re la te pe ko dewan rabo yungkundo ngarange tene somson la teacher na tangbo chepar tawa tela tene jongping ba lo se song yo re.
So within this text on the philosophical schools or the ways of practice, primarily there are two different types of philosophical schools. There are the Buddhist school, or the non-Buddhist schools, and the Buddhist schools. And so these are all different ways. But when we call them philosophical schools, or when we call them in Tibetan the Drupta, or in Sanskrit Siddhanta, what it is drup means to prove, and ta in Tibetan means the ends of this. So when you prove something logically, you come to some sort of an end. And so that is what we mean when we say a drupta, or a philosophical school or way of practice. And so that is, so we prove something logically and then we get to the real point or the essence of something. So when we are doing the meditation of Mahamudra or Dzogchen, then primarily we have two types of views. We have the view of direct perception and we have the view of inference. And when we have and in order to develop the view of direct perception, if we have the view of inference as sort of a helper, as in this, then this is something that is really good for developing the view of that comes from direct perception. And so for that reason, having the view that we develop through inferential reasoning is very important. We come to understand through things through logic and reasoning, and it is very helpful in this. And so in terms of this, there are many different ways that we can prove things logically, that we can talk about things, many different views. And here they're all taught very clearly. And so and that is why it is so important and very helpful to have this text on these philosophical schools. Now, when we talk about the traditions of the philosophical schools and those that spread into Tibet, we first often talk about some schools that spread in India. And in India, among the non-Buddhist schools, there are what we call here the 5 types of the Tarkas or sophists, of the 5 Tarka schools. And now, actually, there are many, many different philosophies in India, but they can all be sort of summed up as these 5 groups of the Tarkas, and these 5 schools of the Tarkas. And so there are 2 basic types of these. There are those that have the nihilist views and those that have the eternalist views. So actually here in the text, it first talks about the eternalist schools, and then it talks about the nihilist schools. But the other day, I was reading a text by the Dalai Lama on the philosophical schools. And in his text on the philosophical schools, the Dalai Lama said that when we study this, although it is traditionally presented with the eternalist schools first and the nihilist schools second, it's actually easier to understand if you present the nihilist schools first and then the eternalist schools second. And so I also thought that that would be easier to understand. And so first I will talk about the nihilist schools, which is the Charvaka school.
Tene ta tela jongping pe tawe ge zo na bo tela kari yore se na ta ngaran zo chulu yendo ge on de se na tene legendary yore tela tene chewa nga che yore sung yore la tene te da mountain pa te muti jongping pa ge se na chewa nga che yo mare legendary yo mare tene chewa nga ma yo mare tene chima yo mare 다 공부하게 숨기 요래 다 단다 진디 단다 장기 좀 야보레스 다 된데 숨기 요래라 드니데 제나 드니데 데라 다 단다 지왕하지 예비 준센터보다 레전드 예비 준센터보다 된데 숨기 요래라 드니 다 데라야 단다 자와른보치게 성나 드니 그마 자갈라 장페 바중아래 다 딩상 그 값을라 드니 지당 그 세리바만 보충아래 세리바게 드니 단다 지당 세리바 생긴데 배 야보래 드니 단단 칸칸가 무슨 통화들라 드니 리피 투박 무슨 통화들라 이치제게 요래 무슨 만통화도 리피 맞을 이치제기요 말해 뎀바 장보 배 히도 야부 요래라 야부 요래라 드니 디게 지왕하지 요리비세나 지왕하지 요리세네야 희기요 말해 가리세나 통기요 말해 지왕하지 매바리세네 토제기리비세나 지왕하지 매바리세네 토제기요 말해 가리세나 하고요 말해 단다 토제요 말해 드니 티처나 세리바 생긴데 뎀바당 장보래 다 된데 성도라 드니 콩랑마 tanda Japan la paper cups la tini sanjurji ge Tseripa ge jiao ngasi mesi ni toje ba re maribe segedo tingi hako ma songsi la ba yin tinde songdo la jiao ngasi mesi ni toje yo ma re jiao ngasi yose ni toje yo ma re ta tindi.
So what is the main view of the Charvaka, the nihilistic view of the Charvaka? Well, the main view is different from other philosophical schools. Other schools say that there is karma, cause and effect. They say that there are previous and future lives. But the Charvaka school is different. The Charvaka school says that there's no reincarnation, there's no karma, there's no cause and effect in previous lives. There's no previous life, there's no future life. And so for that reason they say that if you work for the purposes of this life only, that is enough. That's all you have to, that is good to work for the purposes of this life. And so for that reason, this is why other schools teach that there is previous and future lives and why there is karma, cause and effect. And so that is the view of the basic view of the Charvaka school, which spread in India. And the Dalai Lama said about this, that in India you have this view of the Charvaka school, but now we have also a lot of scientists. And actually science is really wonderful. It's a great thing. It is really good at examining what we actually see. It's if we can actually see something, if we can truly prove something, then we say that it's true, we accept it. If in science we say that something, if we cannot see something or we cannot prove it, then we say that it cannot be proven. And so when we think about something like future lives or previous lives, is this something that we can actually prove? Well, in science it's not actually something. You cannot see it. There's no way you can actually prove it. But at the same time, you can't say that it does not exist, because you can't prove that it is not there either. There's no way that you can actually definitively say that there are no future lives. And so in this way science is really good, because science is saying that we just haven't decided this. We don't know this for sure. And so science for that reason is very truthful, it's very straightforward, and very good in this respect. The Dalai Lama also said that when he was traveling in Japan, he saw an article in a newspaper where a scientist was asked whether it could be proven that there was no past or future lives, and the scientist actually said, "Well, you can't prove that. The science does not say that there's no past and future lives. It just says that you cannot prove that there are past and future lives." And so, in this way, actually, the science is really good. It's really wonderful and straightforward in this.
Tene ta teche de la tene ta Tseripa ge ndeba Tseripa ta perna ngaranda boje na Tseripa kepa chimboda tene ge tene keche kepe kokap ndaboda keche kepe nupanda bo yo marela tene kon Tseripa kepa chimbo ta tene ta kodrusi be tukap ndabo topa intu tela tene Tseripa ndeba kande yeba Tseripa demba ta Trungpa kande imba demba ta Trungpa kande imba ke tain la tene tanda jewa ngats manipa jewa ngats yeba te mantongwa te tene koranso mantongwa re sege yo re mato jewa ngats yo mare sene toje ge yo mare tene jewa ngats yumi kali maungpa la tayare 대전도 샘게 니에당다고 된소야 마음발 칼리 따야레 마도 단다 토체요 말에 다 된데 딩아란서 다때 콩가 깔랍난데 될라 다 배긴 개파된 쪽에 된데 하고 구주레 다 된데 손 살잖아오래라 드니 대세도 될라 드니 나랑가 다 손도 될라 드니 제왕 같이 생기때 다 메팔 제와게 아이 제왕 같이 요아레 somba yoarela tini jewa ngasi yepala yoare somtu yapore karire sena tige jewa ngasi kang jewa chimala kali mayungwa che dungal mepa che jibo yongya che ge dadisi tini tepe pento chimborela tini jewa ngasi yo mare somkin tenzoga ta tanda janga dalilami suwa nangin ge jewa ngasi yo mare Jaisena Yuari, Jaisena Yomari, somebody mato. When Jasa Jatomba Yomari, somebody taught chinking Yuari Vesina, Shiro Yomari la. Jaisena Yojiri, Jaisena Yojimari, somebody would say. Tini Tenzuke, Tachi, Jiwa Hama, Jiwa Chima Yebe, Coding the Vosiena, Be Yakuri. Kariri Sena, Jiwa Hachi Yori, Sonny Tadi Sena, Tadi Chega, you're not Titi Toyum Capsula, Mahompala, Lo Kashiki Jila, Tindalam de Ni Unjurella, Tini Pecala, Tini Mena, Kurata Devori, Yena. Tini undi kalikabu yuarela. Tini koti chi shega yuana. Tini te tap debo. Tanga tingumani katadi yuare. Ta tanda tujugo o sinto sambadabu. Tini yungrela. Tini te jewa ngase. Ichichi na yapore sambadabu ta tini.
And so, this position of science is something that, actually I myself, I don't really have the capability, I don't have the opportunity to really have this sort of a dialogue with scientists. But the Dalai Lama does have he does have the ability to do this. He does have the opportunities to do this, and he's had a lot of dialogues. He's held a lot of meetings and dialogues with scientists, and he says that they are very straightforward. They're very truthful about this, and so when they talk about whether or not there are previous and future lives, they say, well, we don't see them. We can't find them. We do not see them. And so if you say, well, we can't find them and we can't see them, does that mean that they don't exist? They say, we aren't sure. We're not sure that they are there. We're not sure that they are there. We're not sure that they aren't there. And so this is something we're going to look at in the future, gradually take a look at in the future. Similarly, when they talk about the makeup of the mind, the way the mind is, then they say we're looking at this gradually. And so in the future, we will see how it is. We can't definitely say anything right now. And so this is a really important point for us to understand about this nature of the scientific view. We need to understand this point. And so I think that actually this is a really good point. I think actually that most people, when you say, is there reincarnation? Are there previous and future lives? Most people say, yeah, there probably is something. They say, I think that there probably is something. And if you think that there is a future life and you can make some preparations for that future life, then that is really good. So you think that there's a future life, and then you can think, okay, I need to do this to make sure that in the future I will not suffer, and then in the future I'll have a good situation and that I can be happy. And so for this reason, thinking that there probably is a future life is really helpful. So, the Dalai Lama, when he talks about the previous and the future lives, he's, maybe some people say maybe there is a future life, maybe there isn't a future life. We can't necessarily be 100% sure about it. Maybe there's future lives, maybe there aren't. But if we think that maybe there's a future life, and it's best to think, well, there just might be a future life, and maybe I should do something. Because if we now make the preparations for that future life, when it comes to the time for it to happen, we'll be in a good position to deal with it. If not, if we think, there's no future life, maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but I don't think there is going to be. If we think in that way, when it comes to the actual point of we've died and now it's time for that next life, if you haven't done that, then there's a real problem. On the other hand, if you think maybe there's a future life, maybe there isn't, but maybe there is, I'm going to make the preparations for a future life anyways, then when it comes to that point, if there's no future life, it's no problem. You haven't lost anything. And if there is a future life, then it's like, this is easy. I've gotten myself ready. I know what to do in this future lives. And so then it's really helpful for us to believe in there being future lives.
Tene tatanda jitang Trungpa shopi tinang tatanda desong yorela nangba tang nangba yimba tang nangba mayimba tang nangba yimba ni nangba mayimba la yang tene chepartawa tang takpartawa ni sumbena ne ta chepartawa ge loju nda buta tende hibarela tene tering ge chuntin ngadu ge chuntin tesam yona de si gomjam na.
And so, in general, in this text on the philosophical schools, it talks about how there are the non-Buddhist schools and there are the Buddhist schools. And then again, among the non-Buddhist schools, it talks about how there are the nihilist and the eternalist views. And so here I've told a little bit of the history of the nihilist views, and I think that is enough for this morning's session. And so now we will have a little bit of meditation.
Yeah.